Hello, my name is Ian Hodgins and I'm a trustee at Four Park Cemetery, and I want to tell you the story of one of our residents. Now, the source of my tale is from the coroner's records held in the Plymouth and West Devon Records Office. Coroner's reports are absolutely fascinating, not just for the story they hold, and here is the front of the coroner's report. Now this is just part of the document, and it's looking at expenses, and it's 5 shillings for renting the room, 2 and 6 for Mrs. Cutlip for testifying, and 2 guineas for the doctor for testifying. Now, great job if you can get it. Most of the coroner's records are copies of testimonies of all the respective individuals, and this case looks at the death of Alice Mary Filmer on the 19th of August 1896. The principal witnesses are the husband, John Honeywood Filmer. Now, he's a pharmacist working at 26 King Street in Plymouth, and here's the Ordnance Survey map of the house. The front part of the shop is the shop front for the pharmacist, and the back part is his kitchen and his workplace and where he rests. And he's been married to Alice for 4 years, and here is the marriage certificate. Also appearing as witnesses were Mrs. Cutlip, the laundry woman, and Dr. Macbeath. Now, I want to warn you that the testimonies are recorded in the order of the person testifying, so the story will appear to jump about a bit. This is the husband's testimony, and here's the husband's picture, probably taken about 10 to 20 years after this event. It being an early closing day at the shop, I had lunch at 2 p.m. with my wife, Mrs. Cutlip. My wife and Mrs. Cutlip. After lunch, I fell asleep on the sofa in the room behind the shop. And just after 6, 2 men called at the side door. One of them was seeking attention. Whilst I was attending to them, I heard my wife's voice cry, "Jack! Jack!" I sent the men out and rushed upstairs to find my wife ill. I ran to Dr. Bork. He wasn't there. So I went to Dr. Pierce in Flora Street. He wasn't there either. So I went to Dr. Macbeath, and he was there. I returned home with him to find Mrs. Cutlip with my wife. My wife's jaw was quite rigid. From my knowledge of the effects of poison, I believe that my wife had taken strychnine. Our house is infested with rats, and my wife, seeing a rat in the yard this morning, said, "We'll soon get rid of them." I dissolved some strychnine, about a couple of grains, in a teacup, and gave it to her. I dissolved it in some fat and then mixed in some water. And now here the statement has the phrase, "and spread it on some meat." But that phrase was actually crossed out. But the statement continues, "My wife has seen me make rat poison before in a bolus." Now, moving on to Dr. Macbeath. Dr. Macbeath arrived at 8:40 and she died 5 minutes later. The post-mortem showed no marks on her person, no signs of violence, no signs of alcoholism. Death due to strychnine poisoning. Let's move on to Mrs. Cutlip. I've known the deceased and husband for 7 months and have occasionally helped with the washing. On the 19th, I had lunch at the deceased house. I was there until about 5 p.m. About 4:30, I went into the kitchen for a cup of tea, and we talked for a bit. I went through to the back and I saw a rat. "I'll soon put you aside," said Mrs. Filmer. I left Mrs. Filmer and I went home. Coming back at 7:30, I saw the deceased in a state of convulsion. She tried to kiss me, but she could not. To my knowledge, Mrs. Filmer never went out in the afternoon. But on the day in question, Mrs. Filmer dressed up as if she was going out. Mr. Filmer jokingly said, "Good afternoon, Mrs. Filmer." Upon that, the deceased took off all of her outdoor things and sat down. She didn't explain why she didn't go out. There were no unpleasant words passed. The deceased appeared to be perfectly sober. And here the testimonies end. What I want to do is I want to look at strychnine and the effects of it. Now, strychnine is a colourless, odourless, but very, very bitter medicine to take. and it has to be dissolved in fat and then can be dissolved in water. Now, the thing with strychnine is it's a glycine antagonist, and what that means is that actually it stops the muscles that have contracted releasing themselves. So if you take strychnine, then what tends to happen is that you tend to have little sort of convulsions, and there's no way in which you can actually release the muscles. What tends to happen, and it's absolutely horrible, is that patients that take this tend to actually just die from suffocation as they cannot move their neck forward. It's absolutely horrible. It's a revolting death. And thankfully there aren't any uses for strychnine at the moment. Anyway, the testimonies have ended. The case really has a number of issues with it, and some answered questions which are quite striking. Now, Mrs. Filmer is buried in one of the very poorest parts of the cemetery. However, Mr. Filmer was a professional man. The other question is why Mrs. Filmer dressed up as if she was going out. Why did Mr. Filmer make 2 grains of strychnine, which is enough to kill over 200 rats? And why on earth did he make it in a teacup? Why did he cross out spread it on some meat? And why did he decide to have a 4-hour nap in the afternoon? And how come he took approximately 2 hours to get to the doctor, to find the doctor? And admittedly there were 2 doctors who weren't there, but then these are streets where there are doctors all over the place. How did Mrs. Filmer ingest strychnine? Strychnine very bitter to drink, and virtually everyone would notice it if it was in a cup of tea. There are, I must add, a group of people, less than about 1%, who are completely unable to taste bitter. This gene is expressed in a lesser extent in about 20% of the population. And these strange, these bizarre people actually really like Brussels sprouts. So here we have the problem. Which one of the 3 is this? Is this murder? If it's murder, then who committed it? Is it going to be Mr. Filmer, or even Mrs. Cutler? Is this suicide? Is this an assisted suicide, assisted by Mr. Filmer, and then why? Or is this just purely an accidental death in someone who is unable to taste bitter? So, what I want you to do is have a think about this. What do you think? And tell me what do you think the verdict should be? The verdict was recorded that the jury said that this film was certainly going to be accidental death. I'm a little bit worried about that. What do you think? But what I'm going to do is I'm going to leave you with the last part of Dr. McBean's statement. And here it is. Yesterday I was in the back parlour and I saw a rat in the yard. Yeah, the rat has had a very lucky escape because Mrs. Filmer has drunk his poison. Thank you for listening.